The morning of my wedding day began like a dream. I never thought I would live at 61. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in the bridal suite of the Grand Ivory Ballroom, the most beautiful venue in the entire city. The dress I had chosen after months of searching was a soft champagne color, simple but elegant, with delicate lace on the shoulders and a skirt that fell gently to the floor. My silver hair was swept up in a low bun with tiny white flowers woven through it. For the first time in 15 years, I felt beautiful. Not just pretty for my age, truly beautiful. The way a woman feels when she knows she is loved exactly as she is. After my first husband died, I never believed I would stand in a room like this again. 15 years of loneliness, of quiet nights in a small apartment, of holidays spent alone because my only son, Darius, was always too busy with his wife Tasha and her family. 15 years of cleaning other people's houses, scrubbing floors on my hands and knees, saving every penny so I could give this one day everything I had. 400 guests, ivory velvet chairs, towering centerpieces of white roses and gold orchids that cost more than I used to make in a month, a string quartet, a 5-tier cake. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted the world to see that Ellie, was finally happy again. And I was happy, because of him. Elias Vance, Eli, the quiet, silver-haired man with kind eyes and calloused hands who had walked into my life 6 months ago, like a gentle wind. He wasn't rich. He drove an old gray sedan, lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment, and wore the same 3 suits in rotation. But when he looked at me, I felt seen. When he held my hand, I felt safe. When he said, "I love you, Ellie," I believed him with every cell in my body. We had met at the farmer's market on a Thursday morning. My cart bumped into his. A tomato rolled away. I got down on my bad knee to fetch it for him even though it hurt. He thanked me 5 times. The next week, he was there again. And the week after that, slowly, Thursday mornings became our mornings. Coffee at the little cafe on the corner. Long talks about everything and nothing. He told me about his wife Letitia, who died of cancer 8 years ago. I told him about my husband, about raising Darius alone after his father passed. We understood grief. We understood starting over. We understood love that doesn't need grand gestures, just presence. Today I was marrying him. I took one last look in the mirror, touched the small gold locket at my throat, my something old, a gift from my late husband, and walked toward the ceremony hall. The room was breathtaking. 400 people filled the seats. Friends I had known for decades, former co-workers, neighbors, people who had watched me struggle, and still cheered for my happiness. The aisle was lined with white petals. The chandeliers sparkled like diamonds. At the end of that aisle stood Eli in his simple gray suit, looking at me like I was the only person in the world. I barely noticed the 3rd row. That's where Darius sat, in a $4,000 Italian suit and a Rolex that flashed every time he moved. Next to him was Tasha, his wife, in a blood-red dress so tight it looked painted on, her long black nails wrapped around a champagne flute. Her parents, Brenda and Larry Jenkins, sat beside them, Brenda dripping in fake gold jewelry, Larry smelling of cheap cigars even from 20 feet away. Their entire row, cousins, uncles, friends, was dressed like they were attending a red carpet event, not a wedding. I should have known. As I walked down the aisle on the arm of my best friend, Vivian's husband, since Darius had refused to walk me, I heard the first whisper, "Look at that suit. Did he buy it at a thrift store?" A stifled laugh. Poor Ellie. At her age, this is the best she could do? Another laugh, louder. My cheeks burned. But I kept my eyes on Eli. He smiled at me, calm, steady, unshaken, and squeezed my hand when I reached him. The minister began. "Dearly beloved," the whispers continued. "Did you see his shoes? My gardener dress is better. Old woman marrying a pauper. How pathetic." Each word was a needle. I felt them prick my skin one by one, but I held Eli's hand tighter. This was our day. They couldn't ruin it. Then came the vows. Eli spoke first. His voice was deep, steady, full of emotion. "Ellie, from the moment I met you, I knew you were the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I may not have material wealth to offer you, but I give you my heart, my loyalty, and my promise to love and cherish you every single day I have left." A collective sigh rose from the crowd. Some wiped tears. I had tears in my eyes. Then I heard it, a loud, mocking laugh from the 3rd row. Darius stood up, swaying slightly, already drunk at 2 p.m., champagne glass in hand. "This is pathetic," he announced to the entire room. "Seriously, Mom? This is the man you chose? This miserable old man?" 400 people froze. The minister stopped mid-sentence. I couldn't breathe. "Darius, please," I whispered, my voice breaking. "No, Mom," he said, walking into the aisle like he owned the place. "Someone has to say it. You worked your whole life. Dad left you a good inheritance. And this is what you do with it? Throw it away on a nobody who clearly just wants your money?" Tasha stood up beside him, smirking. "He's right, Ellie, that's not a stepfather. That's trash you picked up off the street." And then, God help me, her entire family started laughing. Brenda Jenkins covered her mouth with a bejeweled hand, shoulders shaking. Larry Jenkins slapped his knee. Their cousins pointed. Some pulled out phones to record. 400 guests watched in stunned silence as my own son and his wife turned my wedding into a circus. Something inside me snapped. Not sadness, rage. Pure, white-hot fury. I pulled my hand from Eli's, turned and walked straight toward my son. The room was so quiet I could hear my heels on the marble floor. Darius wore that same arrogant smirk he'd had since he was a teenager, the one that said he always won. Tasha stood with her arms crossed, looking down at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. I stopped right in front of them. "You're right about one thing," I said, and my voice didn't shake. It was strong, stronger than it had been in years. Someone does have to tell the truth here. I turned slowly to face the entire room. 400 faces stared back, some horrified, some fascinated, some already crying. "The truth," I said, "is that I spent 35 years married to Darius's father. 35 years working 12-hour days cleaning other people's homes so my son could go to the best schools. 35 years breaking my back, destroying my hands, giving up my youth, my health, my dreams, so he could have everything." Darius blinked. For the first time, he looked unsure. "Your father was a good man," I continued, "but when he died, he left me alone. Completely alone. Do you know how many times I called you crying because the loneliness was killing me? Do you know how many Christmases I spent by myself because you were too busy with Tasha's family?" "Mom, don't make a scene," Darius hissed. "A scene?" I laughed, but it was cold. "A scene is spending your 60th, 61st, 62nd birthday alone because your only child couldn't be bothered to send a text." People were murmuring now, heads turning toward Darius, eyes narrowing. Tasha stepped forward, venom in her voice. "Oh, please. Always the victim, aren't you, Ellie? Always needing attention. Darius has his own life. He can't babysit you." "Babysit me?" I whispered. Then louder. "I never asked to be babysat. I asked for love, for respect, for a tiny piece of the affection I gave you your entire life." I looked at Eli. He stood calmly at the altar, watching, not angry, not embarrassed, just present. "And now," I said, my voice rising, "now that I've finally found someone who treats me with dignity, who makes me feel alive again, you come here, to my wedding, to destroy it. You, my own son, stand in front of 400 people and call the man I love trash." Darius pointed at Eli. "That man is a gold digger. Look at him. He lives in a dump. He dresses like a bum. I'm supposed to be happy my mother is marrying that." Tasha's family erupted in applause. "Exactly," shouted Larry Jenkins. "He's just after your money," added Brenda. I felt the rage boil over. "My money?" I said, stepping closer to Darius. "Since when do you care about my money, Darius?" "Since when do you care about anything but yourself? That's not fair." "Not fair?" I cut him off. "What's not fair is when I needed $1,000 for surgery 3 years ago. You said you didn't have it, but 2 weeks later you bought that Rolex." Gasps from the crowd. "What's not fair is when I asked to borrow $5,000 to fix my roof. You made me sign a loan agreement with interest, like I was a stranger." More murmurs, people turning fully toward Darius now. "What's not fair," I said, tears burning my eyes but refusing to fall, "is that every time I needed you, you treated me like a burden. And now you dare stand here and judge the man I love?" Tasha opened her mouth to speak, but I wasn't done. I turned to the entire Jenkins row. "And you vultures, you dare laugh? You dare call him trash? You dare record this for your little group chats?" I took one step toward them. "Get out." Silence. Deafening silence. Darius laughed nervously. "Mom, come on." I said, "Get out." My voice echoed off the walls. You, Tasha, your parents, your cousins, your uncles, every single one of you. Out of my wedding, out of my life. Tasha's mouth fell open. You're throwing us out? Your own family? You are not my family, I said coldly. Not anymore. I turned to the venue manager, who had been watching from the door. Security now! 2 large men in suits started walking down the aisle. Darius's face twisted in fury. If you do this, Mom, if you throw me out, you will never see me or your grandchildren again. I swear it. Those words hit me like a knife. Miles, Chloe, my sweet grandbabies. But I looked at Eli, at the man who had never once treated me like a burden. And I made my choice. Then I'll live with that, I said, my voice breaking just slightly. Because I will not let you destroy my happiness one more time. One by one they stood. 20 people. 20 toxic, laughing, mocking people. They gathered their things dramatically, knocking over chairs, spilling champagne, making sure everyone saw their dignity being insulted. As they filed out, Tasha hissed, "You'll regret this, you stupid old woman." Darius was last. He stopped at the door, looked back at me with pure hatred and said, "Goodbye, Mom. I hope he's worth losing your only son." The door closed, and for a moment I stood trembling in the middle of the ballroom, tears finally falling, my beautiful dress stained, my heart shattered. Then I felt arms around me. Eli, he held me like I was the most precious thing in the world. "I'm so sorry," I sobbed into his chest. "I ruined everything. I ruined our wedding." He pulled back gently, cupped my face in his hands, and looked at me with eyes so calm, so deep, so full of something I couldn't name. "Ellie," he said softly, "you didn't ruin anything. You just saved us." Then he smiled, a small, knowing smile. "And now, my love, there's something I need to tell you." He took a deep breath. "I'm a billionaire." The words left Eli's mouth so quietly that, for a second, I was certain I had misheard him. "I'm a billionaire." 400 people were still in the room. Some had started to stand, unsure whether to comfort me or give us space. A few were crying. Vivian was already halfway down the aisle, ready to hold me up if my legs gave out. And yet, the moment Eli spoke, the entire ballroom seemed to shrink until there was only him, me, and those 4 impossible words. I stared at him. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Eli's gray eyes never left mine. There was no triumph in them, no smugness, no gotcha smirk. Only tenderness, and something else, something almost like sorrow. "Ellie," he said again, softer this time, "I have over $2 billion in assets. Properties, companies, investments, everything." My knees actually buckled. Vivian reached me just in time, grabbing my arm. "Breathe, honey." "Breathe," she whispered, but her own eyes were saucers. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The man I had fallen in love with over cheap coffee and bruised tomatoes, the man who wore shoes with worn soles, who lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with a leaky faucet, who always insisted on splitting the check even when I knew he was counting pennies, was a billionaire. $2 billion. I had cleaned floors in buildings worth less than that. "Eli," my voice cracked. I don't understand. You live in a tiny apartment. You drive that old car. Your suits." "All deliberate," he said, gently taking both my hands. "After Letitia died, I watched what money did to the people around me. Friends who only called when they needed loans. Women who looked at me and saw dollar signs. Even her own family tried to sue me for parts of the estate." His voice grew quieter. "I decided I would rather be alone forever than marry someone who loved my bank account instead of me." He brushed a tear from my cheek with his thumb. "So I disappeared? I kept the businesses running through trusted people. I sold the mansion, the cars, the watches. I moved into that little apartment. I wore the same 3 suits. I wanted to find someone who would love Elias. The man, not Elias Vance. The name on Forbes lists. I was shaking my head, still trying to make the pieces fit. But why tell me now? Here? After all that?" He glanced toward the doors through which Darius and his entourage had just stormed out. "Because I needed you to see them for who they really are," he said. "I needed you to choose me, to defend me, when you still believed I had nothing. If I had told you the truth the day we met, you would never have known whether your son's cruelty was about protecting you or about protecting his inheritance." A bitter laugh escaped me, half sob, half disbelief. "So this whole time, you were testing us?" "No," he said firmly. "I was protecting you and protecting myself. I needed to know that the woman I married would stand by me, even if I was the poorest man in the room. And Ellie, his voice broke just a little. You didn't just stand by me. You fought for me. You chose me over your own son. That is the bravest, most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for me. The room around us had gone completely still. People were openly crying now. Phones were up, recording, but no one tried to hide it anymore. This was no longer a wedding. It was something historic. Vivian squeezed my arm. Ellie, sit down before you fall down. Two of my oldest friends guided me to the front pew. Eli never let go of my hand. I looked up at him, tears streaming. $2 billion? I whispered. How? He gave a small, sad smile. Construction. I started with nothing, just like you. Worked on crews for 20 years. Saved every dollar. Bought rundown properties when banks wouldn't touch them. Fixed them myself on weekends. 1 became 5. 5 became 50. Then whole city blocks. I built half the skyline you see from the highway. Vance Development Group, VDG, that's me. I knew that name. Everyone in the Southeast knew that name. The Grand Plaza Hotel, the Sun Promenade, the riverfront towers. I had scrubbed toilets in some of those buildings. And you let me think. I couldn't finish. I let you love me, he corrected gently. And you did. Beautifully, perfectly, without a single condition. He knelt in front of me, right there on the marble floor of the ballroom, still in his modest gray suit. Ellie, I know this is overwhelming. I know today has already broken your heart once. I'm sorry for that. But I needed you to know the truth before we said, I do. Because once you're my wife, everything I have becomes yours, legally and completely. And I will not have you marry me under false pretenses. A collective gasp rippled through the room. He continued, voice steady. I have already spoken to my attorney, Marcus King. He's here today? Row 12, Eli gestured, and a distinguished, silver-haired man in an obviously expensive suit stood and gave a small nod. Marcus has prepared documents that will be signed the moment we finish the ceremony. Joint accounts, trusts, properties. Transferred into your name. Everything. You will never want for anything again. Not money, not security, not love. I stared at Marcus, then back at Eli. And my grandchildren? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Miles and Chloe. The threat Darius had just thrown at me still echoed in my ears. Eli's eyes softened. I have already created 2 trust funds. $10 million each, available to Miles and Chloe when they turn 25. For education, for starting a business, for whatever they dream of. They will never know the struggles we knew. And that is true whether their father ever speaks to us again or not. I covered my face with both hands and sobbed. Not pretty crying. Ugly, wrenching, years of pain crying. Vivian rubbed my back. Someone handed me tissues. I could hear people whispering, did he say 10 million each? And that's the Vance? The actual Vance? Eli waited, patient, always patient. When I finally lowered my hands, my makeup was destroyed, my eyes swollen. But I managed to speak. You paid the $5,000 Darius said I still owed him, I said. It wasn't a question. Eli nodded once. 3 months ago, anonymously, I wanted to see what he would do. Whether he would tell you the debt was cleared, whether he would return the money. He didn't, I whispered. No, Eli said quietly. 2 weeks ago he called to remind you interest was accruing. A wave of betrayal hit me so hard I almost doubled over. Eli cupped my face again. I'm sorry. I needed you to see. I looked around the room. 400 people who had just watched me throw out my only child. Who had watched me defend a man they now knew was one of the richest in the state. Who had watched me break and then be offered the world on a silver platter. And every single one of them was looking at me with something I had never seen directed at me before. Awe. Vivian leaned close to my ear. Ellie, girl, you just won the lottery and kept the ticket. A shocked laugh burst out of me. Eli smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him all day. Shall we finish this? He asked, tilting his head toward the altar. I looked at the minister, who had waded through the entire storm with the patience of a saint. I looked at my friends, tears on their faces, nodding frantically. I looked at Eli, my Eli, who had hidden an empire just to be loved for his soul. And I stood up. Yes, I said, my voice raw but sure. Let's get married. The applause that followed was deafening. Real, joyous, thunderous applause. The string quartet struck up again. Someone handed me fresh flowers. Vivian quickly fixed my makeup with tissues and a compact mirror. And then, with 400 witnesses who would tell this story for the rest of their lives. I walked back down that petal-strewn aisle, took Eli's hand and became his wife. When the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," Eli kissed me like I was oxygen and he had been underwater for years. The reception that followed was magic. Without Darius and his toxic entourage, the atmosphere transformed. People danced like they were 20 again. The cake was cut to cheers. Champagne flowed. Toasts were given, many of them tearful, about love, second chances, and the kind of courage most people only dream of. At one point, Marcus King approached with a leather folder. "If you're ready, Mrs. Vance," he said with a warm smile, "we can sign the documents now. Or tomorrow, whenever you like." I looked at Eli. "Now," I said. We signed in a quiet side room while our guests continued celebrating outside. My hand shook as I wrote my new name, Eleanor Vance, on documents that made me co-owner of skyscrapers, hotels, private jets, and bank accounts with more zeros than I could count. When we returned to the party, Eli took the microphone. "I want to say something," he announced. The room quieted instantly. "Today," he began, "you all witnessed something extraordinary. You saw a woman stand up to cruelty and choose love over blood. You saw her defend a man she believed had nothing, only to discover he is, well, a little more than nothing." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "But the real wealth in this room tonight isn't mine. It's hers." He turned to me. "Ellie, you are the richest person I have ever known. Rich in heart, rich in courage, rich in love, and I will spend every day of the rest of my life trying to be worthy of you." He raised his glass. "To my wife." 400 glasses rose. "To Ellie!" they roared. I have never felt more loved in my entire life. Later, in the bridal suite of the city's most exclusive hotel, floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the glowing skyline, Eli held me as I finally let the rest of the tears fall. "I still can't believe this is real," I whispered against his chest. "It's real," he said, kissing my hair. "And tomorrow I'm going to show you exactly how real." He pulled back and looked at me with that calm, steady gaze I had fallen in love with. "Tomorrow," he said, "I'm taking you home. Our real home, and then we're going to start the rest of our lives." I had no idea what was waiting for me, but for the first time in 15 years, I fell asleep in a man's arms feeling safe, cherished, and absolutely certain that every broken piece of my heart was finally, miraculously whole. I woke up the morning after the wedding to sunlight pouring through windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, the city sparkling 38 floors below us. For a moment I forgot everything, the fight, the revelation, the fact that I was now married to a man who owned half the skyline I was staring at. Then I felt Eli's arm tighten around my waist, and reality came rushing back in the most beautiful way possible. "Good morning, Mrs. Vance," he murmured into my hair, voice still rough with sleep. I turned in his arms. "Say that again." "Mrs. Eleanor Vance." He smiled, slow and warm. "My wife." I kissed him because I could, because I was allowed to now, because the night before had actually happened, and I was still terrified. I would wake up and discover it was a dream. He kissed me back until my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Vivian. "Channel 7, turn it on, now!" Eli reached for the remote. The morning news was already running a teaser. "Wedding of the decade. Cleaning Lady Mary's secret billionaire after dramatic family showdown. Exclusive footage inside." They showed a grainy phone clip of me shouting, "Get out!" at Darius, then cut to Eli's calm, "I'm a billionaire" line. The anchor could barely contain her excitement. I groaned and buried my face in the pillow. "We're famous." "Infamous," Eli corrected, amused. "But don't worry. Marcus has already killed the worst of the tabloid stories. By tonight it will just be inspiring love story everywhere." He rolled out of bed, gloriously unconcerned with his own nakedness, and walked to the window. The city glittered below him like a toy set. "Ready to see your new life?" he asked. I thought he meant breakfast. I was wrong. 40 minutes later, I was blindfolded. Yes, blindfolded, and led into a private elevator that shot us upward so fast my stomach flipped. When the doors opened and he finally removed the silk scarf, I lost the ability to speak. We were standing on the rooftop, helipad of the tallest building in the state, the Vance Tower. A sleek black helicopter waited, rotors already turning. Eli helped me inside, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "You can fly this?" I shouted over the noise. 22 years, he shouted back, handing me a headset. "Buckle up, Mrs. Vance." And then we were airborne. For the next 2 hours, he gave me the tour of a lifetime, narrating like a gentle tour guide while my heart tried to climb out of my throat. That's the Grand Plaza Hotel, 400 rooms mine. Sun Promenade Mall, 2 million square feet mine. Those 3 glass towers by the river, residential, 2,000 units mine. The new cancer hospital with the Red Cross on the roof, built it 5 years ago. Free treatment for anyone who can't pay. Dedicated to Letitia. Every time he pointed, another piece of the city belonged to him, to us. He landed on the roof of Vance Development Group headquarters, a stunning 48-story building of glass and steel that I had once cleaned on the night shift when I was 55. I remembered scrubbing the lobby floors while security guards ignored me. Now the entire executive floor emptied as employees lined the halls to greet Mr. Vance and his new wife. I was introduced to architects, financial officers, project managers, people who spoke of Eli with the kind of reverence usually reserved for saints. A young black woman in a hard hat told me he had paid for her engineering degree when her scholarship fell through. An older man showed me the daycare on the 10th floor that Eli had built so single, parents wouldn't have to choose between rent and their kids. By noon, I was dizzy with information and pride in the surreal, feeling that I had married a king who had chosen to live like a pauper just to be loved for real. We ate lunch in the private dining room on the top floor, looking out over the entire region. That's when Marcus King joined us with a thick leather binder. "Time for the numbers, Ellie," he said kindly. I laughed nervously. "Do I need a drink first?" "Probably," Eli said, pouring me a glass of white wine. Marcus opened the binder. Current net worth, $2.4 billion. It had grown since Eli last checked. Liquid assets available immediately, $187 million. Real estate portfolio, 42 commercial properties, 8 luxury residences worldwide, 3 private islands. Annual charitable giving, last year, $94 million. I stared until the numbers blurred. Marcus slid a stack of documents across the table. "These transfer full joint ownership to you effective today. 3 residences are already in your name only. The beach house in Costa Rica, the penthouse here in the city, and the mountain lodge in Asheville, plus a personal investment account seeded with $50 million. Spend it, invest it, give it away. Completely your decision." I looked at Eli. "You're insane." "No," he said softly. "I'm late. I'm 66 years old, and I finally found the person I trust with everything. I spent a lifetime building. I'm not waiting another day." I signed where Marcus pointed. My hand shook so badly, the first signature looked like a child's scribble. By the 10th document, I was steadier. When it was done, Marcus smiled. "Welcome to the Billionaire Wives Club, Mrs. Vance, though I have a feeling you'll be the only one who still clips grocery coupons." I laughed through sudden tears. After Marcus left, Eli took both my hands. "There's one more thing," he said. "I've been watching Darius." My stomach dropped. Since the wedding, he's tried to contact me 17 times. Calls, emails, even showed up at the lobby downstairs twice. Security turned him away, but Marcus kept every message. He pulled out his phone and opened a folder. First message, 3 days after the wedding. "Mr. Vance, there seems to have been a misunderstanding. I was unaware of your position. I'd like to apologize and discuss how we can move forward as family." Second message, "I have business proposals that could interest you. Mutually beneficial." 7th message, "I'm in financial difficulty. As my mother's husband, you have a moral duty to help her only son." The last one sent yesterday, 500,000. "By Friday or certain parties will cause me physical harm. I'm sure you don't want my mother to lose her only child." I felt sick. "He never once asked if I was okay," I whispered. "Never once apologized to me." Eli's jaw tightened. "He's drowning, Ellie. $2 million in debt. Luxury cars repossessed. The house in foreclosure. Creditors who don't send polite letters. And now that the city knows who I am, some of his old friends are distancing themselves fast." I closed my eyes. My baby boy. The one I had rocked to sleep, bandaged, scraped knees. Worked 3 jobs to put through college. That boy was gone, replaced by a man who would blackmail his own mother. "What do we do?" I asked. Eli's answer was immediate and gentle. "We do whatever you decide. I can write a check today and make it all disappear. Or we can let him face the consequences he spent years earning. This is your son, your heart. I will never take that choice from you." I stared out at the city he had built brick by brick. "I need to see him," I said finally. "Alone." Eli didn't argue. He simply nodded. Whenever you're ready. I'll have security nearby, but they'll stay out of sight. You set the time and place. That night we flew, in the helicopter again, to what Eli called our real home. I expected another skyscraper penthouse. Instead, the pilot set us down on a private airstrip beside the ocean. A car waited to drive us 10 minutes through pine trees until the road opened up to reveal the most beautiful house I had ever seen. Not a mansion, a home. 2 stories of cedar and glass nestled against dunes, with a wide porch wrapping all the way around. The sound of waves filled the air. Inside, warm wood floors, books everywhere. A kitchen big enough to feed 50 but cozy enough for 2. Every detail chosen for comfort, not show. I designed it 10 years ago, Eli said quietly. But I never moved in. It felt too big for one person. I was waiting for the right person. I walked through room after room, crying happy tears. My own office with a desk facing the sea. A library. A studio with easels and paints, because he had noticed I used to sketch as a girl. A nursery, already furnished, because he knew how much I missed my grandchildren. That night, we made love with the windows open and the ocean singing us to sleep. The next morning I made my decision. I texted Darius from my new phone. Eli had quietly replaced it with one that had top-level security. Meet me tomorrow, 11 a.m., the coffee shop on 8th and Mercer. Come alone. His reply came in 6 seconds. I'll be there. Thank you, Mom. I love you. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Eli kissed my forehead. Whatever happens tomorrow, you won't face it alone. I'll be across the street. 1 call and I'm there. I nodded, throat too tight to speak. Because tomorrow I would look my son in the eye and decide whether to save him or finally let him fall. The coffee shop on 8th and Mercer used to be my safe place. 25 years ago, I cleaned it every night after closing, mopping the same black and white tiles while the owner counted tips and hummed old jazz. Now, I sat at the corner table in a linen dress that cost more than I once made in a month, wearing sunglasses indoors because paparazzi had started recognizing me. 2 plainclothes bodyguards sat at separate tables pretending to read newspapers. Eli waited in a black SUV across the street, watching through tinted glass. 11:03 a.m. The bell above the door jingled. Darius walked in and I almost didn't recognize my own son. The Italian suits were gone. He wore wrinkled khakis and a polo shirt 2 sizes too big. His face was unshaven, eyes red-rimmed, hair unwashed. The Rolex had been replaced by a cheap plastic watch. When he spotted me, his shoulders folded inward like a child waiting to be scolded. Mom, he whispered, voice cracking on the single word. I didn't stand up. I didn't open my arms. I simply nodded at the chair opposite me. Sit. He sat. The chair scraped loudly. The barista glanced over. She recognized us both now. Everyone in the city did. Darius tried for a smile. It died the moment he saw my expression. Thank you for coming, he started. I know after everything. Stop! My voice was calm, but it cut him off like a blade. We're not doing small talk. We're not pretending the last 2 weeks didn't happen. You have 5 minutes to tell me why I shouldn't walk out that door and never see you again. His mouth opened and closed. He looked 10 years older than 38. I'm sorry, he blurted. Mom, I'm so sorry. I was cruel. I was drunk. I was terrified of losing you to some man I thought was using you. I see now how wrong I was. I waited. He swallowed hard. When I found out who Eli really is, I panicked. I thought if you had all that money, you wouldn't need me anymore. I know that sounds insane, but that's what went through my head. And then the debts. I've been drowning, Mom. $2 million. Loan sharks. They took the cars. The house is gone next week. Tasha, she left. Took the kids. Filed papers yesterday. He was shaking now. I tried to fix it myself. Sold everything I could. But it's not enough. They're coming for me. Real people. Bad people. They've already been to the apartment twice. He leaned forward, voice dropping to a desperate whisper. I need $500,000 by Friday, just to make them back off long enough to breathe. Eli can write a check and never feel it. Please, Mom, I'm begging you. I'll sign anything. I'll pay it back. I'll disappear if that's what you want. Just don't let them kill me. The cafe around us had gone quiet. Even the bodyguards were staring. I removed my sunglasses slowly and let him see my eyes. You still don't get it, I said quietly. He blinked. Get what? You're not begging for your life. You're begging for another chance to never change. His face crumpled. Everything you just said, I continued, was about money. Not one word about the fact that you humiliated me in front of 400 people. Not one word about calling the man I love trash. Not one word about 15 years of ignoring me, using me, treating me like a bank machine with an expiration date. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry the gravy train derailed. You're not sorry for who you became. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I am sorry. I swear to God I am. I don't know how to say it right. Then let me make it simple. I pulled a business card from my purse and slid it across the table. Marcus King, attorney at law. This is Eli's lawyer, the best in the country. You will call him today. He will negotiate with every creditor, file orderly bankruptcy, and put you into witness protection if necessary. No one will lay a finger on you. Your children will be safe. That is what Eli and I are willing to do. Hope flared in his eyes. But, I said, and the single word killed it, there will be no check for $500,000. There will be no bailout that lets you keep the lifestyle that destroyed you. You will move into a small apartment we will pay for. 1 year, rent and utilities only. You will take the construction job Eli is offering you, starting at the bottom. Same as he did. You will attend financial literacy classes, addiction counseling if needed, and weekly therapy. You will have supervised visits with Miles and Chloe only after Tasha agrees and only if you stay clean for 90 days. I leaned forward so he could see every ounce of steel I had found inside myself. And you will write me a letter. 10 pages, handwritten, about every single time you hurt me in the last 15 years. Every missed birthday, every loan you never repaid, every time you let Tasha speak to me like I was garbage. And you will read it aloud to me when I decide I'm ready to hear it. Those are the terms. Take them or leave them. He stared at the card like it was a lifeline and a noose at the same time. Mom, please, I can't start over at the bottom. I'm 38 years old. You're alive, I said. That's more than you deserve right now. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he picked up the card with trembling fingers. I'll call him, he whispered. Good. I stood to leave. He reached for my hand. Mom, wait! I stepped back. You don't touch me until you've earned it. I walked out without looking back. The moment the door closed behind me, my legs gave out. One of the bodyguards caught me before I hit the pavement. Eli was out of the SUV in seconds, pulling me into his arms on the sidewalk while strangers filmed on their phones. I did it, I sobbed into his chest. I let him fall. You gave him a ladder, Eli corrected gently. Whether he climbs is up to him now. That night, Marcus confirmed Darius had called within 20 minutes. Agreements were already being drawn up. The next 2 months were a storm. Tasha filed for sole custody, claiming I was now a dangerous influence because of the media circus. Eli's legal team shredded her in court. Supervised visitation was granted to Darius, and I was awarded generous grandmother rights. The first time I held Miles and Chloe again, both of them confused and quiet, I cried so hard Chloe patted my face and said, Don't be sad, Grandma. We missed you. Darius moved into a modest one-bedroom in a working-class neighborhood. Eli's company put him to work on a crew at 5 a.m. every morning, carrying rebar, mixing concrete, the same grunt work Eli had done at 20. He lost 30 pounds. His hands blistered. He stopped drinking because he was too exhausted to lift a bottle. Every Sunday he sent me an email update. No excuses, no begging. Just facts. Hours worked, money saved, therapy sessions attended. The emails grew longer, more honest. The first time he wrote, I was ashamed to look in the mirror today because I remembered what I said to you at the wedding. I printed it out and kept it in my nightstand. 103 days after the coffee shop meeting, a handwritten envelope arrived at the beach house. 10 pages. I sat on the porch with the ocean roaring and read every word. He remembered my 59th birthday when he had promised to take me to dinner and canceled because Tasha wanted to go to the lake house with her friends. He remembered making me cry in the parking lot of the bank when I couldn't afford the interest. On the loan he forced me to sign. He remembered the wedding, every cruel word, every laugh from Tasha's family. The exact moment he saw the light die in my eyes when he called Eli trash. Page 7 was nothing but the sentence, I'm sorry. Mom written over and over until the pen tore the paper. Page 10 ended with, I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I finally see you. I see everything you sacrificed, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to become the son you deserved all along. If you never speak to me again, I will still live every day trying to make you proud from a distance. I cried so hard Eli had to carry me inside. 3 days later, I replied with a text. Come to the house Saturday. Bring the children. We'll have lunch on the beach. He answered instantly. Thank you. I don't deserve this, but thank you. Saturday came. Darius arrived in a 10-year-old pickup truck wearing jeans and a company t-shirt. Muscles hard from labor, face tanned and clean-shaven. Miles and Chloe ran to me screaming, Grandma! Before he even parked. When he walked up the steps to the porch, he stopped 5 feet away, hands at his sides, waiting for permission. I opened my arms. He crossed the distance in 2 strides and held me, like he was 6 years old, again and had fallen off his bike. We stood there crying while the children played in the sand and Eli grilled fish, giving us space. That evening, after the kids were asleep in the guest room, Darius and I walked the beach alone. I read your letter, I said. He nodded, unable to speak. It hurt, I continued. But it was honest, and honesty is where we start. He stopped walking, turned to me in the moonlight. I don't want your money, Mom. Not ever again. I'm saving to pay back every cent I borrowed from you. Even the 5,000 Eli covered. It'll take years, but I'll do it. I know you will. He took a shaky breath. Can I call you sometimes? Just to talk? Not to ask for anything. Just to tell you about my day? I smiled through tears. Every Sunday. 7 o'clock. Like when you were little and we had our Sunday phone calls. His face crumpled with relief. We walked back in silence, the waves washing our footprints away. Behind us in the glow of the house, Eli stood on the porch watching, arms crossed, smiling the quiet smile of a man who had bet everything on love and won. I had let my son fall, and for the first time he was learning how to stand. 1 year to the day after the wedding that almost destroyed me. I stood barefoot on our private beach at sunset, wearing a simple white linen dress, holding Eli's hand. 400 guests had been too many. 20 people felt exactly right. Vivian was there, of course, in a bright turquoise dress and the biggest hat she could find. Marcus King and his wife, a handful of Eli's oldest, truest employees, the construction foreman who had become Darius's mentor. Miles and Chloe, now 7 and 5, scattering petals with such serious concentration it made everyone laugh. And Darius, my son, stood at the end of the sand aisle in a navy suit that actually fit him because he had bought it with his own paycheck. His hands were rough and scarred from honest work. His shoulders broader, his eyes clear. He held a small wooden box containing the new rings we had chosen. For this vow renewal, simple gold bands engraved on the inside with the words, I let you fall so you could learn to fly. When the officiant, the same minister who had survived our first wedding, asked who gave this woman to be married again, Darius stepped forward. I do, he said, voice steady. And this time I'm proud to do it. There wasn't a dry eye on the beach. We renewed our vows under a sky painted pink and gold. Eli spoke first. Ellie, a year ago I promised to love you without telling you who I really was. Today I promise again, knowing exactly who you are. The strongest, kindest, most loving woman I have ever known. You taught me that real wealth has nothing to do with bank accounts and everything to do with the size of a heart. I will love you every day until my last breath, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. Then it was my turn. Eli, you gave me back my life when I thought it was over. You showed me that love can be quiet and still change the world. You let me be angry, you let me grieve, you let me grow. And then you stood beside me while I became the woman I was always meant to be. I love you more today than yesterday, and I will love you even more tomorrow. We slipped the rings on, kissed while the sun slipped into the sea, and the small crowd erupted in cheers and happy tears. Later, during the dinner under string lights, Darius asked if he could make a toast. He stood, glass of sparkling water in his hand. He hadn't touched alcohol in 378 days. I owe every person here an apology, he began. Especially my mother and Eli. A year ago, I stood in a ballroom and tried to destroy the happiest day of my mom's life because I valued pride and appearances over love. I lost everything because of it. My home, my marriage, almost my children, almost my mother. But losing everything turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to find the man I was supposed to be. He turned to me. Mom, you let me fall when saving me would have been easier. You loved me enough to let me hurt. And because of that, I get to stand here tonight as a sober, honest, hard-working father who is finally proud of the reflection in the mirror. I will never be able to repay you and Eli, for the ladder you lowered into the pit I dug. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life climbing it, one rung at a time, until I'm someone you can be proud of again. He raised his glass. To Ellie and Eli Vance, the two people who taught me that real family isn't about blood or money. It's about who's willing to fight for you when you're wrong, and still love you when you're right. Everyone drank. I cried so hard Eli had to hand me his handkerchief. After dinner, the children fell asleep on blankets under the stars. The adults danced barefoot to a three-piece band playing old jazz. At one point, I looked around and realized every single person on that beach had been touched, in some way, by the events of the past year. The foreman had a new apprentice who was learning not to repeat Darius's mistakes. Vivian had started volunteering at the Letitia Foundation. Even Marcus had quietly paid off the medical debt of a waitress who once served us coffee. The broken wedding had become a ripple of good that kept spreading. Much later, when the guests had gone and the children were tucked into bed, Eli and I walked to the water's edge. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, chin resting on my shoulder. "Happy one-year anniversary, Mrs. Vance." "Happy everything, Mr. Vance." We stood in silence for a long time, listening to the waves. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Any of it?" I thought about the pain, the humiliation, the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I had lost my son forever. The terror of watching Darius hit rock bottom. Then I thought about the woman I was now, president of the Letitia Foundation, which had helped over 6,000 abandoned elderly women in its first year. Grandmother who saw her grandchildren every week, who taught them to swim and to value people over things. Wife of a man who still brought me coffee, in bed every morning and kissed me like it was the first time. Mother of a son who called every Sunday at 7 on the dot, who sent me photos of the tiny house he was saving to buy, who had paid back every penny he ever borrowed, plus interest, and still sent me a handwritten thank you note every month. I turned in Eli's arms and looked up at him. "Not a single second," I said. "Because every tear, every fight, every sleepless night led me here, to this beach, to this life, to you." He kissed me slow and deep, the way only a man who has waited a lifetime to be loved for real can kiss. When we finally pulled apart, I smiled. Although, I teased, "Next time you decide to reveal you're a secret billionaire, maybe give a girl a little warning." He laughed, the sound rich and free. "Deal. Next time I'll put it on a cake or something." We walked back to the house hand in hand, the lights glowing warm and welcoming. Inside, on the mantel above the fireplace, sat 2 framed photos. The first, our original wedding day, me in champagne lace, mascara running, clutching Eli's hand while 400 people looked on in shock. It was chaotic and tear-stained and perfect. The second, tonight, all of us on the beach, laughing, barefoot, surrounded by love we had fought for and earned. Between them was a small plaque I had made the week we moved in. It read, "We let each other fall so we could learn to fly. And look how high we soared." I paused to touch it, the way I did every night. Eli kissed the top of my head. "Come to bed, love. Tomorrow's another day to keep building the life we want." I took his hand and followed him upstairs. Behind us, the ocean kept singing its ancient song, and the house settled around us like it had been waiting its whole life for exactly this family. The lonely cleaning lady was gone forever. In her place stood Eleanor Vance, wife, mother, grandmother, philanthropist, warrior, and for the rest of my days, no matter how many zeros were in the bank account, the greatest fortune I would ever own was the love I had almost lost, the son I had almost given up on, and the man who taught me that sometimes the richest thing you can do is let someone love you when you have nothing left to give except your heart. And my heart? It was finally completely, gloriously full.